Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined by Scott and Cam from Spy Hard's podcast for the review that everybody has been waiting for. We are, of course, talking today Cars 2, released in 2011, directed by John Lasseter. And I knew straight away I needed to get these two on this channel for this episode. How are you both doing today?
Wait, Cars 2? I brought my Wally. I was really excited.
I thought we were talking about The Spy Who Loved Me.
Oh.
Unfortunately, we you missed Wally by a few weeks.
There's a second Cars film?
There's three of them. There's two spin-off films. There's apparently a lot of Disney Plus spin-offs.
Are you going to make us watch those too?
Oh, no.
I can assure you all that I won't be watching any Cars outside of the three I have to watch for this series, which might just epitomise my thoughts.
I mean, Cam hasn't even got a driving license. I don't know why you invited him.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to start this, if I'm honest. Like, I've not done a video of you guys for so long, and I've brought you on for Cars 2, and I feel like I owe you both one straight away.
Perfect reunion here.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing us back.
Yeah.
I'm going to bet, what do you want to call our next? I'm going to say Cam, the good dinosaur. And then we'll see what happens. But we are...
Are you calling me old?
He is the good dinosaur, literally.
No.
That's...
He's a relic of the Cold War. Oh.
I'm thinking the plot of The Good Dinosaur in my head. I've seen it once. It was many years ago. Unfortunately, I've realised, like Cars 2, I have to revisit it for the series. But it's another Pixar Retrospective episode. And as lovely as it is to be with you both, I said this before we even hit live, I owe you both a massive thanks for jumping on this. This sounds horrible. It's like I'm doing an outro. Unfortunately, we haven't started talking about the film yet. I want to ask you both, how are you both doing tonight? That's more important than Cars 2.
Emotionally, I'm unfulfilled. But I have just finished watching Cars 2, so...
Yes, I think I'm doing pretty good. But I managed to take one of those amnesia drugs so that you take it to the hospital and you have a procedure. And so, yeah, from what I remember, everything in the past few days has been great.
So I've just finished watching 4 episodes in a row of Peaky Blinders, season 2.
Okay.
So I watched Cars 2 this morning, but I have to tell you, going from a very strong Black Country accent to now talking about Cars is quite jarring to the point. Yeah, I'm somewhat confused.
I'm in the middle of watching The Pit, which is a really satisfying television show that has a great story structure, interesting characters, and you want to spend time and learn more about them. And it doesn't go off into this weird little sub story, not about the actual lead character. It's
on season 2?
Odd. Yeah, I am.
What season 3? You might become a spy for that one season. Who knows?
Oh, could you imagine?
I haven't even seen it because it's what did I read? It's going to launch with HBO Max in the UK. I'm like, brilliant. Correct. That's March 2027.
Yeah.
So the older TV, I'll get round to it.
Season 3 will be out by then. Think of all the stuff you could binge.
I mean, Cars Tunes, is that what it's called? Is that on the to-do list? Who knows?
Doesn't that just rev your engine?
I mean, we're going to get in some weird discussion tonight, by the way, because once you start talking about this film, you start talking about cars, things get out of hand, as I've discovered. Our Monsters, Inc. review turned into discussion on the lore of cars. Our Cars review ended up bringing up 9/11 because there's implications, which are actually in Cars 2. Then you get the Pope and you get religious backgrounds. This is the franchise of franchises that are not cut out for me trying to skirt around. But I'm going to put you both on the spot of something lovely for a change because it's been dour so far. Pixar, they've been going, at this point in time this video goes up, they've just had their 40th anniversary as a studio. Obviously, the first film came out in 1995. What are both your background with Pixar? Do you have memories of seeing a film for the first time, or maybe anything else in particular?
Scott, do you want to go?
No, you go first, Cam. You're more of the Disney animated kind of guy.
Well, I figured we would have you kind of fumble and flop, and then I would kind of save it. So,
I see. I mean, it isn't my kind of. These aren't my kind of films as a general rule, as a genre. But I remember watching Toy Story in like '95 or whenever it was, and being blown away by the whole thing. I thought this was amazing, and then there's been some iterations upon that since then, but they never really managed to blow me away again.
Yeah, we actually talked about Toy Story on our Patreon some time ago, and that was such a crucial movie, and we both have a relationship to it. I'm a few years older than Scott is, and so for me, when Toy Story rolled around, the first one, I was like a teenager, and so it didn't have kind of the casting a spell over me the way it would people a little bit younger than me, where they were growing up seeing Toy Story. I went and saw it because of the technology. That's what excited me. Now, that said, I was a huge Disney kid. I was a massive fan of classic Disney. A lot of those early films, Pinocchio, Snow White, Cinderella, I got to see them all in theaters because they were doing theatrical re-releases over the years when I was a young kid. So I never really had a sense that this movie's from 1940. I had no idea. All I knew was I saw Pinocchio, and then like a month later, like Oliver and Company, and which was like a new release at the time. I just had no idea. And so I grew up really loving more of the kind of gothic storybook kind of Disney films. That was kind of my jam. So when Toy Story rolled around, it was the technology that was the most exciting thing. It was like, I've never seen an animated movie that looks like this. Went and saw it, enjoyed it. But Pixar, to me, when I'm saying I was really into more the kind of gothic storybook stuff, that's not really the Pixar mode. And so I would watch every Pixar movie, and some of them I would enjoy more than others. I didn't really love Pixar until I saw Wall-E and Up between 2008 and 2009. Those two really pulled me in more as an adult viewer. And even though I had really enjoyed Toy Story 1 and 2 and Monsters, Inc., I looked at them more as movies I enjoy, but I don't hold them as like a real place in my heart. And going forward, I've seen every Pixar film that's been released. Some I really like, some kind of fall in that it was pleasant kind of mode. Yeah. But there's only one that I've been actively unhappy with.
Are we on the one?
Yeah, so that kind of makes it a special film, I suppose, for me to tackle. Because if you asked me about, I don't know, Finding Dory, I'd be like, yeah, it was fine. This one, I have an opinion.
I can't wait to get into that because I'm wondering if we're in the same page, and the spice is going to be really important. Is because my mind has been tinkering throughout the day with what to say. To be delicate, so normally I'm pretty positive, but I've also watched the 2025 War of the Worlds, which I absolutely loved, for the complete opposite purposes of it being in that room category of this will stand the test of time.
Like a midnight screening type of film.
If the Prince Charles Cinema's like, right, we're doing Ice Cream Reward, I was like, I might actually go. Maybe not, maybe, but it's that old conversation, right? What's worse, a boring 2-star film or the entertaining 1-star film? And maybe Pixar doesn't have that, but I'm with you, Cam. There's a lot of them where it's like, that was very nice, that was enjoyable. I might have a connection to it, you move on, whereas some of them jump out like, oof. And I think today's jumps out for many different reasons. And where we'll go with that, we'll kick out the IMDb plot synopsis, which is far too long, which maybe has more detail than the story of this. Star race car Lightning McQueen and his pal Mater head overseas to compete in the World Grand Prix race. But the road to the championship becomes rocky as Mater gets caught up in an intriguing adventure of his own. International espionage. Put it lightly. I'm curious to get both of your memories with this film, or if you can remember the first time you saw it.
I will jump in because it's brief. It probably wasn't at theatres. It was probably at home at some point with either my nieces or nephews, because I wouldn't really watch a Pixar film unless I'm with kids. I wouldn't go and see one by myself. And I remember going, that wasn't fun.
I went by myself to the theater.
You were riding solo.
Yeah. Because this is the year after Toy Story 3, which was the year after Up. And so this is like the Pixar hot streak for me, where a lot of these movies are making my top 10 best of the year lists when I'm writing them. And so it was like, well, Cars 2, I didn't hate Cars 1. a lot of people were actually really down on the first, whereas like I actually really appreciated like the relationship stuff. It had beautiful scenery. It was a movie that I actually can enjoy, even if I don't consider it top tier Pixar. And so when they said they were doing a second one and the trailers are advertising a spy movie, I'm like, okay, well, that's odd. But you know what? This is coming after Toy Story 3. I'm going to give them a chance. I'm going to go in and just say, you know what? Maybe they know. Maybe they've cracked the code as to how to make a superior sequel, because Pixar done it before and made sequels that were great. And I remember watching the film, and actually it's funny because Scott and I recently did an episode on our podcast on the Boss Baby, which, you know, I never in my life thought I'd be doing a podcast episode on the Boss Baby. But and we talked a lot about animated films, and this falls more in the DreamWorks stuff, where there are these animated films that you really do consider kids' films. I think Pixar, Disney are family films. I think they can be enjoyed by anyone, really, outside of maybe a few examples here or there. But like a lot of, you know, whether it's Illumination or whether it's DreamWorks, a lot of them fall into that kid movie energy. We're just throwing things kind of around. They're hyper energy, you know, going on, and it's just about keeping kids kind of focused on a TV or on a theater screen. And that was how I really felt about Cars 2, where I was watching it going, they made a catastrophic decision to frame it around Mater, a character who works as a supporting character with, you know, limited screen time in the first, but putting him at the center of a story that's basically characters basically saying, you have to learn, you don't have to change. People will accept you. And it's like, no, he's aggravating as all hell. That's a terrible message to be telling kids, considering this guy, the way he behaves in, you know, public and what have you. And it's just the kind of thing that's very grating in a way that I had never seen Pixar fall into that trap before. It really felt like a huge miscalculation, something that you don't normally associate with that studio.
Yeah, and there's a lot of behind the scenes on this, and I think a lot of it's going to go to the top of the pyramid at the time, which is John Lasseter. My memory of this, I might be in the same as you, Scott, except I don't have any nieces or nephews, but I didn't see this at the cinema. I definitely saw this at some point, and that there was an era, and it might be around the time of Monsters University, where I was studying at college film at the time. Everyone's telling me, Pixar, you might have Toy Story, you might have had kids ones, but go watch WALL-E, go watch Up. These are like top films, not because of the studio, but because of the films themselves. And heading into today, I've been a bit nervous because if I take out Cars 1, but maybe I'll include Cars 1 because I'm the same as you, Cam. The first time I watched Cars as a kid, I didn't like it. But as an adult, I was like, you know what? It's not as bad as I remember. It's not a favorite by any stretch of the imagination, but maybe it's the others that bring it down. But the first 11 Pixar films are some of the strongest work by a studio for the first 11 films. Granted, they've obviously pairing with Disney, so they've got money backing them. But as what they did from a technological standpoint, a story standpoint, the vast difference of film to film. And then we get Cars 2. And I remember hating it the first ever time I saw it. And a few weeks ago, I sat there thinking, you know what? I brought a Cars fan on, Jed. He's going to be on Cars 3. He's a huge fan of Cars. It was a really fascinating discussion. And I thought, maybe I'll give Cars 2 a chance. I'm laughing because that's the result. Maybe Cars 2 might actually be better. Maybe because I've heard so many things about Cars 2 over the last few years that I'm going to enjoy it more. And I'm sat there like, I love Michael Caine. And he's basically playing James Bond, but a car. So I went into it quite open today. And unfortunately, if I just get into it, I still have the same thoughts as before. And I think that behind the scenes, I'm laughing because it's outrageous. I might also bring up George Lucas a few times today. But this is the first Pixar film that's not Toy Story to get a sequel, which is very much worth mentioning because now you look at Pixar and it's like, oh, we're getting Incredibles 3. We're getting a Coco 2. We've had so many sequels of different Pixar films. You forget Cars 2 is the first, which is kind of wild. And I've always been in my hashtag Where's a Bug's Life 2 arguments. Of everything they ever sequelized, they didn't touch a Bug's Life.
I'm more of an Ants guy. I want Ants with 2 Zs.
That's fair. Oh.
I
just remember the trauma of there's like a head, there's an ant without a head that's like, it's not looking good, is it? And I just remember that image.
I'm kidding. I can't stand ants. I'm a Bugs Life guy. If I had to pick a side in this war. in this in this small animal war.
Without plugging our own series, the behind the scenes on A Bug's Life is some of the wildest behind the scenes I've ever seen. It's actually just DreamWorks and Pixar like fighting each other, and it's like proper espionage. Didn't have a clue about it, but John Lasseter came up with the concept for Cars 2, and they were promoting the first Cars film in 2006. And they were traveling around Europe as you do on press tours, and apparently John Lasseter sat there thinking, "What would Mater do?" I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I don't know why a grown adult would sit there on a press tour and his one reaction is, "What would Mater be doing right now?" That began the concept of what the sequel would be, which is quite worrying. And at this point in time, it is worth mentioning that John Lasseter is now head of not Pixar, but he's the head of Disney Animation following Disney's acquisition of Pixar. So he is the George Lucas of, I run the studio, I decide what we're making, and for all the abuse I've seen thrown at George Lucas over his lifetime, many of it I think unjust, I am mesmerized that I guess John Lasseter not has got away with it as such, but I believe he was the only human being on the world that wanted Cars to have a sequel, and he was the one that resulted in a trilogy, 2 spin-off films, animated spin-offs in between Cars 1 and 2, Disney Plus series, which I know he wouldn't be involved in now. But yeah, this is very concept. And to make matters worse, I don't know how he came to the decision for it to be espionage, but the core influences he has listed, which I'm just going to say is laughable, is the Bourne trilogy, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and North by Northwest.
The last one, North by Northwest, is bang on. But like
the man in the wrong position situation thing.
Yeah. But Bond isn't listed, which is weird. Like I wouldn't really say it's Jason Bourne.
No, and it's so clearly Bond because it's literal cars, and there's a DB5 version, and it's Michael Caine, and it's British, and I was at a bit of a loss to this. I can't seem to find the source of where are we coming from with why does it need to be a spy film? Like, I know not to turn to Toy Story conversation, but Toy Story 1, very simple plot. Toy Story 2, the approach is like, let's throw the world of collectors into Toy Story. What happens there? Toy Story 3, you're dealing with what happens when you outgrow your toys. Cars goes from racing cars film to spy. And Cars 3 goes back to racing again. So that then makes 2 stand out even more. For me, the wrong reasons.
So what you're saying is Cars 2 is The Last Jedi?
No, because The Last Jedi is an excellent film and continued what Star Wars 7 set up.
Allegedly.
No. I would say Cars 2 is Halloween 3. Where you suddenly go from Michael Myers to like, like, what is it? Weaponized masks.
I've never seen them, so I can't comment.
Okay.
Well, it's like Star Wars side is interesting.
The idea of like the sequel that like really doesn't have anything to do with what came before or feels completely removed from the concept.
I mean, let's just take it back to your point, George. And I also want to point out the hilarity of a car alarm going off in the background about 2 minutes ago while we're talking about cars. I like the idea of doing a spy film.
Agreed.
I think that I like the idea of going, okay, we have these characters. What can we do with them? Because there's only so many tracks this person can drive round. Paul Newman isn't with us anymore. Like, there are things that we can't do that was in the first one. Let's try something different. The fatal error is in its lead character. That's where this entire thing comes to a rather tragic crash. And I also understand exactly why Lasseter came up with this, because those promo tours are 6-12 months. You're walking around seeing all these billboards with these characters. You're living with these characters perpetually. It's like Stockholm Syndrome at some point. You can't get away from them.
Stock car home. Thank you.
Let's talk Paul Newman very quickly, because he did pass away in 2008, so they wrote him out of the film, and I do like him in the first one, and I know they again use footage, they use audio from the booth from the making of the first one in Cars 3 to bring back a scene, which I think's done a bit like the Carrie Fisher. You've done the best you can with that environment. Yeah. And the original concept for this film would be Mater and Lightning McQueen basically bonding and grieving over the Doc having passed away. And I think that would have been, for 2011, very daring for Pixar. But at the same time, I'm sat there that this is the studio that almost just annihilated the Toy Story trilogy by putting them in Inferno.
I'm just sad that we didn't.
Did Wall-E?
I'm just sad that we didn't get like a Paul Walker style scene where like it's like a Photoshop version of Paul Newman driving off, and it's been a long time, I'll see you again, and they drive off. Like, what a waste! What we could have had.
Yeah, and when I look at the first Cars, and again, I'm mixed on it. I like elements of it, but like there is a lot of boomer American nostalgia driving, pardon the pun, that film. Like there's a reason John Lasseter is so passionate about Cars. It's the idea of like Route 66 and driving across America and all of that. Yeah, exactly. That is very alive in the first Cars movie. And so you can, even if you don't connect with the movie necessarily, like you can feel his passion for conveying that story and what that sort of Americana means to him. I don't have a sense when I watch Cars 2 what any of this actually means to the creators.
I agree with you. And that's a good point. With that first one, he went on Route 66, and that inspired him to make a film like Cars, which is understandable when you look at the road trips. But I'm just going to swap the schedule around ever so briefly, because we'll talk about the story of this now, because I think it's actually best place to do so. As we've said, this is a spy film. And jumping off what you said, Scott, I've got maybe a controversial take, but you guys might agree with me. So hear me out. The concept of Pixar doing a spy film, I would be down for. I actually really like the spy story in this, where to get into the logic and lore of Cars, you're talking about basically a petrol car pretending it's gone electronic. It's going to bring in a new era of a new fuel, and the plan is to hamper that to go back to what it was before, because you've got these oil reserves in the ocean that no one knows about. I've probably explained it badly, but the spy elements work really well. The espionage, you've got the big sequences. This is all taking place on a racing tour of the world. You go into these big cities, and you're going to have death and destruction that goes into it. No one can know. There's some quite, for Pixar, deep moments. You know, cars being incinerated, being reflected in a TV screen, cars being compacted. Yeah. And I'm sat there like, and this is maybe where you guys quit the stream and tell me never speak to me again. I don't think the spy side of this film is bad. I actually think there's a good spy story in Cars 2. However, it should not be in a Cars film. There should have been a Pixar spy film, right? Because I then sat there thinking, have Pixar done a spy film before? And they haven't at this point, and they haven't since. And then I sat there thinking, I'm not going to say give it James Bond, but I was like, I've always dreamed of a James Bond pre-title sequence set in Formula One. Just the occasion, the setup lends itself to something beautiful like that. And I sat there like, even as a live action, this same story would work, theoretically, even if you bring in the oil and the petrol stuff. There's a good spy film there. But as you said, Scott, the choice of lead character is abhorrent for this. And it undermines the first film, because you're taking away pretty much the core group of characters that worked in Cars 1. The whole town, even the love interest is at the start and end of this film pretty much only. And it becomes a Mater spin-off film dressed up as Cars 2. And I actually think it's one of the worst decisions Pixar has ever done as a studio. And there's some questionable things as a studio they've done. But I'm also going to jump into that to say, this sounds really horrible, but I've always been a defender of Jar Jar Binks, right? And as a kid, as a 3-year-old, I didn't care for Jar Jar Binks. I watched The Phantom Menace. I loved young Anakin. I loved Sebulba, Darth Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn. They were like my guys. And I never liked Jar Jar. So when you get older, you find out everyone hates him. I was like, you know what? I'd kind of get it if I was a little bit older. Being a little bit older at this point in time, I'm watching Cars. I'm like, I really hate this tow truck. And then you get to Cars 2 and it's like, I hate him even more. He's just annoying. He's not very nice. It's not an intelligence thing, but I actually sat there thinking like, is this the Jar Jar Binks that people talk of? Is this what people see when they think of Jar Jar Binks? So I've really had to go into it with Star Wars lore today, but I just absolutely hate the character, and I think that's where the film's broken for me. Is that even feeling bad for Lightning McQueen, which sounds weird to say out loud, it should be his film, but it's not, and I don't think that's fair. Imagine if Toy Story 2 was about the Green Soldiers. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not.
They did get their own TV show.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, I need to find that now. Sorry, I love them. I love the little scene.
Or they were shorts or something. They used to be on Disney Channel all the time.
But this is like, am I wrong for the spy opinion? Because I'm talking to the experts because I'm genuinely curious what you guys think of the spy side of it.
Well, I think you have to go back to the source material that's cited here, and I read what you had said before, along with a couple of other films that were mentioned. And what you've got to do is look at those films. You've got to look at the Bourne films. Okay, you have Jason Bourne as your lead character, and Jason Bourne's quite aloof, quite standoffish, but you care for him. You want him to survive. You look at North by Northwest. Cary Grant's Roger Thornhill is a likable oaf. It's Cary Grant.
He's a charm machine.
Yeah, it's hard not to like him. The Man Who Came In From the Cold. No, not sorry. The Spy Who Came From the Cold. But sorry, The Man Who Knew Too Much is what we're talking about here. The Man Who Knew Too Much. Jimmy Stewart, Doris Day. Who can't like those people?
Yeah, and Man from Uncle's. What was one of the other things? Cited?
Yeah, Napoleon Solo, Ian love them both. You put Tow Mater as your lead character. Now, I don't know car vernacular particularly well, but Tow Mater is a kind of character or person or thing or entity that I would love to be scrapped in a scrapyard and crushed into metal and thrown away somewhere. Like, it is chalk on it's nails on a chalkboard, I should say, for me. Now, his particular irascible kind of yeehaw energy might be great to some people in some countries. That's amazing, but I think on a worldwide scheme, and these things are meant to be worldwide films, he is a secondary character at best. They Evan Almighty'd this character, unfortunately, and they really shouldn't have.
Well, Scott, off air, you were talking about the James Bond franchise, the Sheriff Pepper from Live and Let Die and Man with the Golden Gun, a character who's incredibly in your face. He's screaming a lot. He's also there only for like a handful of minutes. And that's kind of the joke, is to watch Bond just kind of raise his eyebrow at this guy. And when you get to the Man with the Golden Gun, his second appearance, that's J.W. Pepper on vacation. And the idea of this like very ugly tourist, right? Like the guy who's in a different culture and being really disrespectful and obnoxious. That's what Mater is in every location they take him to in this movie. They go to multiple places. You're going to Paris, you're going to Japan, you're going to Italy. And in every place, it's him acting like a complete buffoon in regards to the culture. And there's no point where they're like, you know, Mater, this is really inappropriate. In fact, it's quite the opposite of the movie saying, no. That's Mater. We have to love him for who he is. It's like, well, hold on now. There are differences between someone being kind of an exaggerated personality and someone being actively rude to hosts and those around them. And if you're going to make a spy film, part of it is you want the person to at least try to be a spy, to at least blend in when they are in a different culture, something, because Cary Grant in North by Northwest is not a spy. He's someone who's pulled into a spy mission. He is the Mater figure in that story. But he's doing his best. He's trying to figure things out. He is showing up at an auction and trying to outsmart James Mason, even though he doesn't have the same skills as the other real spies in the film. Mater has no idea what's going on in the entire film, which is incredibly frustrating. Because then you are also introducing characters like the Michael Caine or the Emily Mortimer, actual car spies, who then look really stupid because they don't realize he's not in on what is actually going on. And they're consistently telling him, well, he must be smart. He must be smart. And it makes them seem dumber by comparison. But I will say this to back up what you were saying, George. I actually disagree. Sorry, I should say I agree. I agree with you that when it comes to the mechanics of what the spy plot is, of the, was it all in oil or something like that? Like the kind of manipulation of that. The Pixar, team are famous for the writer's room. I think they actually did decent work in hammering down a spy story that holds up to scrutiny. Like, it actually does make sense within the character's motivation, the villain's motivation when he's revealed. You go, okay, I get this. Like, I think the core of it works. It's everything around that doesn't make sense.
It's so weird to talk about because not only have I never spoken about Cars 2 before, but that's what's made it worse on the viewing for me today, where I'm sat there like, this is a fairly decent spy story. As you said, the Pixar Writers Room, how they've been as a studio up to 2011 as well, and there seemed like there was some behind-the-scenes carnage where John Lasseter was originally not involved as the director. Things were not going well, and they brought him on board to, quote, steady the ship. And from an animation standpoint, there is a couple of things I'll flag about this film which is impressive. They had a 118 sets for the animation, which is on average twice as many as most Pixar films. And it said The Incredibles had the record around 80-ish sets to make for them digitalized. So that's quite astounding for 2011 as well, I'm going to say. And they had to develop new technology for this called procedural. And that was a 3D city animation software, which again explains how they can do, I guess, all the driving, speeding around the cities with 3D buildings and whatnot. So there's some interesting stuff. And I do think that animation itself, as you would expect with Pixar, is of the highest quality. Particularly, I think,
sure,
the WALL-E. I mean, when we saw WALL-E the first time, that didn't look like a Pixar film in the most incredible complimentary manner. Their first 20 minutes at points looked almost like photorealism, like a new form of animation. And that also then makes this film more frustrating for me, if I'm allowed to say that how again have they ended up putting Mater in that main role? Because even if I'd give benefit of the doubt, I'm not the biggest fan of Lightning McQueen. I know people idolize him, and I really
wait. Who idolizes Lightning McQueen?
I'm genuinely being honest, guys. There's a lot of younger people obsessed with these films. Like to me, like Buzz Lightyear is like my hero of Pixar, right? Like Buzz Lightyear is the guy. To them, it's Lightning McQueen, and my brain, and it sounds like old man yelling at clouds. I'm like, why is it Cars? Why is it Lightning McQueen? But they love him. There's Lightning McQueen Crocs that people wear. I think the F1 drivers spoke about him before. It's scary. Well, but I do like Owen Wilson.
I can say this. I used to work, I still work in a bakery, but I used to do cake decorating, and I did it for like 15 years or something like that. I think I've made more Cars cakes, Lightning McQueen cakes, of any other property I can even think of.
That's not surprising. It's remarkable, and I understand why. And I've said this to some friends before. Like, if I'd have been 3 or 4 when Cars came out, could that have been my Toy Story? Because going off what you said there, I don't have a photo to hand, but Toy Story came out in 95. I was born in 96. Toy Story 2 was 99. The perfect sweet spot. I have a Toy Story birthday cake from my 2nd or 3rd birthday, and it's got RC Woody Buzz on it. It was all custom made, and it's really cute. And I'm sat there like, animated films, everyone has the ones they grew up with. And I feel like most people that I've done the series of similar ages to me has all been Toy Story, a couple of Monsters, Inc. And then the generation below is all Cars. That's all they talk about. Cars this, Cars that. And it's scary, but understandable. But something I thought of with this that, and I don't know what you guys think, not all we can make it better, but if Lightning McQueen was the spy in this, I actually think that would have more potential to function as a film. Because he'd have been having to do the racing side whilst doing the double pivot as a spy to uncover what has happened. And every time I think about something, I just go back in a circle, which I hate being negative, and just sit there berating Mater, which, again, it's a character that I've hated from a young age and will probably continue to hate.
Well, I understand your premise. I think it falls apart when you think of what this film is trying to do with spy tropes. It's littered with them. It's basically a pastiche of what everyone thinks 1960s spy movies are, which is basically what the Austin Powers films became. It's basically a lot of Austin Powers stuff in here. Mm-hmm. If you're going to have a Lightning McQueen as your spy, he has to get the girl by the end. But unfortunately, the first film set him up with a girlfriend. So you can't do that. So who's next? It's Tow Mater. And of course, Emily Mortimer is going to be completely smitten with this tow truck.
Such a disparaging way to say tow truck.
Well,
I think there's also a problem, which is we're looking at it from the point of view of people in their late 20s to their 40s, right? If I am an 8-year-old kid and this movie stars Lightning McQueen, what is the entertainment factor? I think they kind of ran into problems where you go, well, this whole like oil versus fossil fuel subplot, I don't know that kids care. And if we play the espionage stuff kind of straight with Lightning McQueen, bouncing off Michael Caine and Emily Mortimer, do kids love this? Or do we need to throw basically a cartoon character at the heart of it, because at least kids are going to enjoy watching Mater be a goofball?
And that's probably it. And I think I agree with that. And at the same time, it then also makes it, if I'm allowed to say, not frustrating, but I know I'm looking at the studio concept, right? This is the same studio that, again, had so recently done Ratatouille, had done WALL-E, had done Up. And when we had the discussion on Up, it was quite heavy with the subject matter, but we did sit there wondering, would kids enjoy this film? And I think some of them do, and it would be the dogs, it'd be the balloons and the adventure side of it. And it feels like
there's a kid character for them to
Russell.
attach themselves to, yeah.
And it just so much feels like Pixar's like dumbed itself down. And I know there were a lot of issues making this. That again, you bring your company, basically the big boss, on board to finish it because they're struggling. It implies there are some background issues, and there's not a lot detailed out there. But obviously, the final film that came to be and went into play is what it is. And kind of, if I'm allowed to talk about, actually, one of you guys want to jump in, I was going to talk about a couple of the characters next. That maybe we're not.
I'll just finish off with like an overall point, and we get into the sort of the minutiae of the film. But like, to what everyone's points are, this whole concept doesn't work, and so they obviously wanted to do something with a sequel. They greenlit it, rushed it into production, like it was go. Sometimes you have to kill your darlings. And I feel like the idea of there being a spy movie was in the room, and that's what they went with. I feel like if you were going to have a time machine, you would go back and tell them to just don't do the spy thing, because they clearly went back to driving cars around racetracks in the third one. Mm-hmm. That seems to be what people turn up for a film called Cars.
And Cars 3, which George, you don't give your opinion yet because obviously your video will be coming out later down the road. Don't want to spoil it, but like Cars 3, I think at least has some heart to it. Which the first one does as well. And that's something that like Cars 2 just feels absent of. It feels more like kind of a bit of cash-in sequel. And I kind of understand, because I believe, maybe George, you can answer this, I'm not 100% sure, but that Cars is the most lucrative merchandise seller of any Pixar property.
Cars and Toy Story are a country mile sat at the top, which explains the spin-offs. The licenses that are pairing up. I mean, I know I've mentioned Crocs a few times. Never thought I'd say that. Jed, who came on last video, he's got a Cars. You know when it's like cold and winter, you put a windscreen cover on. He's got the Cars eyes for his, and it seems that Disney has tapped into this market. And I guess if we're looking at it in 2026 now, the first one came out 20 years ago, and they revisited that franchise a lot. Even recently, I was in Smith's, and there's loads of Hot Wheels cars in their own zone still. And I do sense that Toy Story and Cars, I'm sure there's probably a chart somewhere, but there's been conspiracies, and apparently John Lasseter dismissed this, that Disney wanted the sequel in production because of how much merchandise that first film made, which I also know Disney absolutely would do. And at this point in time, Disney own Pixar. And I think that's the fundamental difference when people start looking at why did they make so many sequels? Why did X, Y, Z change? A lot of it is going to be the Disney factor. And I know, without this sounding deep or an excuse as such, this is the last film of which Steve Jobs was alive when it released. I know Brave was posthumously. That's where the tribute is, and we'll discuss that a little bit more detail. But I certainly feel that the absence of Steve Jobs is very much noted in the 2010s. And in the 2020s where we are now, it's noted somewhat more that Lasseter is not working on them. However, obviously completely different circumstances as to why he isn't at the company versus Steve Jobs. And I know that Steve Jobs was never afraid to pick a fight with Disney, which I always appreciate in someone involved in these studios.
I just want to add in about the franchise worth. I went to Wikipedia. I don't want someone to leave you a comment trying to correct you. Cars is the most lucrative franchise that Pixar have. It's worth an estimated $22 billion, whereas Toy Story is the second and worth 14.8. So
like that's
Cars,
a big
Cars
difference.
It's a big jump as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you go to Disneyland, California, Cars Land is one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Because they've done a complete recreation of Radiator Springs. You can walk through. I've eaten at Flo's V8 Cafe. It is exact replica of what you see in the film. They have the ride there, which is Radiator Racing. I think I got the title wrong, but people who've ridden it know it's like, I think there's a real argument to be made. It's the greatest theme park ride ever achieved. So, like, in terms of the kind of things outside of maybe the Cars films, there's a much higher bar of quality, but you need the films to continue that popularity where kids want to go to Cars Land and Disneyland.
I agree with that. And even here in London at the time of this episode going up open this week, Pixar has a huge London event opening that will be open for the next 4 months. It seems like it's more of a photo opportunity space. It's called Pixar Mundo. There's going to be 16 or 17 different sets as such, and they're more like photo ops environments. So they've got a scaled up Andy's bedroom from Toy Story, for example. So you're going to go into the room and you'll be like the toy sizes, which is great because it reminds me of Toy Story 2. And on all the advertising, you've got Lightning McQueen, the Cars photo ops that are there. When I went to Silverstone Grand Prix in 2017, Cars 3 was coming out. They gave one of the garages for them to put Lightning McQueen and another, the villain of the film, car in there. And of course, they had Lewis Hamilton doing photo ops. And even in this film, you've got loads of the F1 drivers in cameos. Each language version of the film had a different Formula 1 driver. The English version had Lewis Hamilton. From memory, the German version had Sebastian Vettel. The Spanish version had Fernando Alonso. And I can't remember the other language ones. I think a Portuguese one had one of the old Brazilian drivers. For those that like their F1, they've obviously done that in each of the films, with Michael Schumacher being in the very first Cars film. But if we get into some of the characters, I'm astounded by the 22 billion, and I absolutely see it, though. I see it. We've spoke a bit about Mater already, and I don't have a lot more to say because I'm not being rude or direct in saying that. I said this on the first Cars review. I'm very unfamiliar with Larry the Cable Guy. I've never seen him in anything except for Cars. And you don't even see him, you voice him. I don't know if he's one of those comedic actors or just comedy performers where he's huge in America and that leap to Europe maybe never happens, because we know that happens with comedy, that very rarely does a comedian crack both sides of the world.
It's a very American stand-up comedy act that he does. The whole cable guy aspect of kind of the like red state cable guy kind of stuff,
blue collar worker,
blue collar, yes. And it, honestly, like, I live in Canada, it doesn't even cross over here. It's not like we're familiar with Larry the Cable Guy, even though we are neighbors with the US. And so, I mean, I'll say this about him: what he's doing in the movie, he's doing his job. And I think he's a very energetic performance. It's just that it's much better in moderate amounts. And I think, to the best of my memory, too, when the first Cars came out, he actually got a lot of good reviews for his performance as Mater, because it was these small little moments that were just like punctuations on a scene, and people legitimately thought he was funny. It was here where it was like ramped up to 100, that it was suddenly like, whoa, too much.
That's fair. I can see that. And what do you both think of Owen Wilson? Because we know his performances as a comedic actor, as a drama actor as well. As he doesn't get a lot to do in this one, and it's really hard to sometimes discuss voice roles. But when he's been the lead in what should be 3 of his 3 films, and he's clearly not in this one, it's a mistake that I think they do rectify. But even his character arc doesn't have much going to the, he's sick and tired because he's really embarrassed by him. I agree. And it comes full circle, and yes, it's his best mate, and he feels horrible for kicking him out. I'm sorry, but if I had this guy on the radio on me and I was a driver, I would just unplug, and I wouldn't be able to do it, because that would be a very rightful distraction. But I've got more to say on the other characters who've not spoke about it, which is why I'm sort of very politely flying through this. If anyone else wants to jump in on Owen Wilson.
I mean, this is kind of a serviceable voice acting job. He doesn't have a lot on the page, and but Owen Wilson, I mean, I like him. Yeah,
he did his job.
Yeah.
Now we can talk Michael Caine. I've got to say, I'm sorry, I love Michael Caine in this film.
Michael Caine.
Firstly, the name Finn McMissile, it sounds like a very dangerous McDonald's dessert. I'm not quite sure why. I don't know where the muck comes from. Like, should it have been a Scottish actor? I don't know. But I love that this is the closest we got to Michael Caine as James Bond.
Well, they probably went to Sean first and then couldn't get Sean. And then
this is what about Brave? And he was probably no.
Yeah. There's still muck for you as well, if it's Sean.
That makes more sense. But, I mean, what do you guys think of him in this? Because I don't care for the character as much. As you said earlier, he looks really stupid because he's continuously getting it wrong. I love the opening, the espionage scene, the compacted car, very James Bondy. I think Michael Caine's genuinely giving it a go. Like, it doesn't sound... And I know at this point in time, right, in Michael Caine, he's still... Obviously, he's meant to be retired at the moment, but I keep seeing his quote coming out of retirement to work with Vin Diesel, which is quite terrifying as an idea. I'm pretty sure he's in his mid-90s now, but I think it's a massive name for Pixar to get. And one thing Pixar has done in this point of their studio lifetime, they're getting the likes... oh my God, my name's gone... They've had Peter O'Toole in Ratatouille, for example.
Yeah.
You are getting legends from around the globe at this point in time, and you get Michael Caine in for that wasn't an impression, that was just my voice going weird. You get Michael Caine in to do a spy film, and it works so well, and it's playing the British angle so perfectly. And I think he's giving it a fair go. I don't think he's rocked up to the studio, I always forget his name, the Smith from The Matrix, where he talks about I've forgotten that's his name. In Lord of the Rings as well.
Oh, Hugo Weaving?
Hugo Weaving. His famous Transformers, like, yeah, they pay me millions for like an hour's work, or whatever he famously said about Megatron. I get why you just don't say it out loud. I think Michael Caine's giving it a go, and I actually think his character's somewhat more interesting. That, again, the concept of spies in this Cars world shouldn't work, but is intriguing to the smallest of extents. And I actually think, I guess the logic people say is this should have been a spin-off or something, but he did work. And sort of, as well, you bring in Emily Mortimer, who is a bit of British royalty with regards to acting, and she's playing Holly Shiftwell, which is it's a very James Bond name. It's a great pun for a car as well.
Nailed it. I started clapping when I heard that. I actually genuinely went like, well done. Shiftwell, very good work.
I'm surprised I got past Disney. Like, I'm really surprised I got past Disney.
Well, there's a point where like Mater was watching porn in his hotel room. I'm like, how did that get across the line?
I think I'm gonna. Does this sound bad to say out loud? Don't cancel me.
It's your show.
It is my show. I'm not gonna edit this out. I think it's just Disney just blasting it because they're in Japan. Like, I think it's literally that, like, oh, this is Japanese culture. Like, turns a blind eye to it all. I don't know if that sounds horrible, so it's not my intention, but that's probably how someone like Disney viewed that, if that makes sense.
Double down, George. It is your intention.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we spoke about length on Toy Story 2 about, I didn't know about it's not deleted now. Well, is it deleted now? But in the old days of the amazing blooper reels, there was a casting couch gag with Stinky Pete, and I actually think that's one of the funniest jokes. And that's now been obviously digitally deleted from the Disney Plus versions. And
really?
Oh, it's gone now. It's long gone. It's not on the 4Ks, and it's out. They won't have it on. And I guess with what obviously came out in the years that followed with a certain Harvey Weinstein, it's understandable. The fact they made a the fact they made a Toy Story 3 and Barbie had a bigger role in it kind of makes it even funnier in retrospect. But they got away with some wild stuff in animated films back. Even you can't see it behind me for the Toy Story anniversary. I don't really buy Toy Story merchandise, but they did a Sid's Toys collection, and it's all it's a small little box, like 30 quid, but it was very cool. It had all of Sid's toys. except the one called Hooker, who obviously, as I discovered when I'm older, it's 2 legs and a hook in the middle, and it's called Hooker. That's gone. That's not in the merchandise. Every other toy from there is there except Hooker.
Well,
I'm not going to sound like some angry old woke screaming, but
it is
interesting.
that is a newer Disney approach, because it's like when you go on the Roger Rabbit ride in Disneyland now, they put trench coats on Jessica Rabbit.
Have they?
Yes, they have. She wears a long yellow trench coat like Dick Tracy.
I know about them. They Photoshop all the cigarettes out of Walt Disney. I knew about that. I think that's quite common knowledge. But yeah, some of the meta stuff they got away with. But Shiftwell, that's not getting made today. If there's a Cars 4, we won't be seeing Holly Shiftwell again, or should have changed her surname. I don't know if it'd be Holly Mater or something. Who knows? But what do you think of Mortimer and Michael Caine? That's a big coup for the British side of it.
Well, Michael Caine is not only British royalty in terms of acting, but in terms of spy movies, he's also royalty. He was, of course, Harry Palmer in the 60s Harry Palmer films, all 3 of those, and then the unfortunate 90s films they brought out too. So when you think of like the spies of the 60s, it's Sean Connery and then it's Michael Caine. People will often think Roger Moore comes first, but no, Michael Caine's probably just a tier above, I would say, because he did it first. And The Ipcress File is such a beloved film by many people that isn't me. And so like getting him is the perfect casting. And also you got to think like Sean and Roger were still here at this point, but they weren't acting anymore. Michael Caine was just doing a Batman, I think, just the other day when this film came out, or not far after, one way or the other. So he was definitely still acting. And so that's like, if you're going to go for someone, Michael Caine is your pick. And Emily Mortimer, I mean, God love her. I love The Newsroom. It's a great TV show. So she's fantastic in that. So seeing her in this, and she, there's a lot of people who could take on that Shiftwell role and be like, oh, this is a bit anti-feminist and stuff like that. She's like, no, let's lean into the jokes. Let's go for it, have some fun. And you've got to be up for having some fun with that sort of role.
And Michael Caine was also continuing on that sort of kidding the 60s spy persona that he'd done in Austin Powers 3. Mm-hmm. So, like, I think he probably got a lot of good notices off that one. He probably was aware that people appreciated that. He also had done Muppets Christmas Carol, a couple decades before, 2 decades before, a movie that he's incredibly proud of and has talked about how much, like, the experience meant to him, but also like the feedback he's gotten over the years and how he really treasured that film. And so I wonder, he gets approached by Pixar. He's aware of the reputation of Pixar. He may be going like Cars 2, okay, but like the idea of doing, like, working with the best in family entertainment, he's probably thinking like, this could be something that maybe I can have the same kind of valuable experience I had with like Muppets. I don't know whether he got that personally from it, but you can tell he's not phoning it in. It does not feel like an actor who's just kind of there. He's actively trying to like really bring charm to all of his lines and to make his character have that kind of suave, smooth spy kind of energy. And it clicks. The problem is it's in a movie that isn't good. And so it's so easy to dismiss. Like, God help us, when Michael Caine passes, no one's going to mention Cars 2.
We will.
I think some might. I think genuinely, some might. That's the thing.
You know what?
Some people I know worship him. Like they worship him.
You're right.
Style.
You're right. And actually, you know what? Disney will probably put out like a like a statement or something. Mentioning his passing, and may even have a shot of him in Cars 2. You never know, but it is like something that I just think in terms of his filmography, it would be nice if he'd had a home run Pixar title to his name.
Yeah.
I agree. Especially with, again, the performance they've had from legendary actors at the latter stages of their careers too. And they, from the ground up, you look at Bug's Life, there's a lot of sitcom actors in there. You look at Toy Story, you've got obviously older comedians too, and what they varied. I'm looking down at my phone because I've showed you both this. I'm not going to put it to camera, but before we went live, an old Michael Caine tweet is doing the rounds at the moment, and it's very funny. It's from the 17th of July, 2011, and it says, quotation marks, Car 2. Premiere today, fun and entertaining. Put that on your poster, Pixar. Fun and entertaining. I'm not going to go through each of his characters, but I want to talk about this ensemble so briefly because we're talking more about the spy side of things. This is an incredible cast when you read these out. John Turturro, Bruce Campbell, Eddie Izzard, Thomas Kretschmann, and Jason Isaacs. Now, I do not believe any of these have done a Pixar film at this point in time, but all of them ended up with small roles in this is quite remarkable. I am sat there like, not if this was live action, but if there was a live action spy film and it had this entire cast, bar maybe Larry the Cable Guy and maybe Owen Wilson, people would be talking about, presuming the film's good, for years. It's a really remarkable cast, and I love it for that. I'm just going to very delicately say John Turturro. I absolutely love playing an Italian F1 car.
MVP.
I love him in everything. And at this point in time, he's been doing the Transformers trilogy. That's been very popular, especially with younger audiences too. When he is dialed up to 12, he is incredible. And what a legend. But before we move on, does anyone else want to talk about any characters? Anything that we've missed?
I was trying to find, see if I can remember, because I've just read that Jeremy Clarkson was certainly in our version of it, at least anyway.
He was the agent.
I don't recall him being in the film.
He's in the first film, so there's two different actors that play Lightning McQueen's agent. In the British version, only the British version, we got Jeremy Clarkson.
Right.
And in the American version, I cannot remember the name of, it's a comedian, but watching Cars the other week, the first one, I was like, is that Jeremy Clarkson?
See, he's not in this one, he's in the first one.
Yeah, I didn't hear him in this today, unless there's a blink and you miss it voice cameo. But I didn't hear anything. But that's very odd, because even in 2006, whilst he's a big name here, I don't think that many kids were.
Well, Top Gear was on the air at that point, and he was actually in Top Gear. So, like, that's like the BBC's biggest export at the time.
But I didn't know how many kids knew him, if that made sense, like for the first one, like 10-year-olds.
But it's like one of those things that's just on television. You're aware of the voice of Jeremy Clarkson. Like, it's just, I think it works for all ages. Maybe less so now.
I will say, like, I really enjoy what Bruce Campbell does. He has a voice where you're like, why have they not done more with him in animation? He's just perfect. And to see him playing, this kind of Goldfinger-esque torture scene, really fun stuff, because he has the right amount of ham. But also, Vanessa Redgrave is the queen.
Yeah.
That one's kind of fun. And you know what? That was actually one of the few laughs in the movie for me, was the antenna coming up to do the knighting ceremony.
I would just miss that they knighted someone that isn't of the realm.
Right.
You don't do that. You don't do that.
You get like an honorary one, don't they? And they sort of get knighted. They just get a very specific title, which is to be like,
I forget what it stands for, but you're not a sir.
And I don't think he has a voice role, but Prince William in this is called Prince William.
Very good.
It's fair enough.
Very good.
There's not any good car puns on Andrew, which they're probably very grateful for 15 years later. But I want to talk the score very briefly, because this is the first and only John Lasseter Pixar film not composed by Randy Newman. Instead, it's Michael Giacchino in his fourth. I will give the film some praise here, and it's not because of Michael Giacchino. This is a good score. I think, as you'd expect of Michael Giacchino, he knows how to do spy films. He knows how to score films at this point. At this point in time, it's worth mentioning he has won his Oscar for Up as well. And he has started to become, I don't know if you guys would agree or disagree with me on this, I don't think he's a household name in the context of non-film fans. That I don't know if your average Joe in the street would know who Michael Giacchino is. They would probably know a lot of his music, and if you said the films he'd done, they'd probably recognise the themes. But I think composers are really difficult to jump into that realm of everyone knows them by name. I think you've got a handful. I think you've got Zimmer, John Williams, and Danny Elfman.
I was going to say Elfman, yeah.
Yeah, they're probably the biggest through where people know the names that can put to the films.
There's another one, but it kind of cheating, Trent Reznor.
Yes, that's very fair, 9 Inch Nails. He did do one of the best scores of last year under a different name for one of the worst films of last year, I have to say. But he's done Pixar. We'll get to talk about him later on in the show, which is interesting. But it's a good score. I don't have much more to say on that in a nice way. It's similar to The Incredibles, which I do think Incredibles is much better than this score-wise, not just film-wise. The 60s one, it's that John Barry influence is very apparent in The Incredibles, Whereas this one, I think he gets the sort of understanding of what they want from this, a modern spy film, carrying on with the Cars lane. I think he's doing the best he can. And it's good. I don't think it's drastically memorable, but it functions better than it probably has any right to be.
I think it's a bit of a tough assignment for him, too, because The Incredibles kind of did his 60s spy sort of score with the big brassy instruments and all that, as you said. It's very John Barry. And so to then give him something that's trying to evoke 60s spy films, it's like, oh, right. I think he does the best he can. I actually think the score does work. It has a little more of like a slickness to it that I think is quite efficient.
I don't really have anything to add. Historically, I'm terrible at paying attention to scores. I only ever notice them when they're terrible. So the fact that I had no notes about the score means it's fine.
Yeah.
That's very fair. I'm kind of with you on that. We do normally bring the score section upon this because normally Pixar films tend to get best song nominations, best score nominations. And when we talk about the legacy of Cars 2, for those unfamiliar, this is the first Pixar film to be nominated for 0 Oscars. The first 12 films into the studio, nothing. Usually they can, at this point in time, the obligatory best animated film nomination tends to be there. Even today, and I like this film, even Elio has secured a best animated film nomination. And in 2011, Cars 2 couldn't. Normally they might get a nod for original song or score. Nothing at all around the board for this. And its box office, it grossed $560 million off a $200 million budget, which is almost half of the predecessing film of Pixar. Granted, that was a third film in a trilogy. I'm going to be honest, I'm not surprised by any of that. I don't think this film, for a start, deserves any accolades in the Oscars. I'm just going to make that really open. And talking the legacy of the film, I would say that it's regarded as one of Pixar's worst, and I think many people put it into that conversation, which sounds a bit horrible and mean on a retrospective on the studio, but I don't think it's unfair for the discussion of Cars 2 because it is what it's most recognised for as being arguably the worst.
I think it absolutely deserves what it got in the sense of nothing, and it also shouldn't have got any more receipts than it did because I think I actually went and looked at the trailer after I watched the film today, and I just thought, like, who would be pulled in by this? Like, who is this for? Because you turn what is known as a film about driving into a film about spies, and I mean the popularity of spy films has been, for many people, waning since the 60s. Luckily, Skyfall kind of gave it a little bit of a bump, and the Bourne films too. But it's not a popular time for spy movies anyway. This feels like it's more for the filmmaker than for people watching the films.
Yeah, and it's like when, kids are playing with cars, they are rarely enacting spy missions with the cars. So it
Speak
really,
for yourself, Cam. I mean,
it really doesn't make that much sense unless you, I guess, have like the Lotus car or something, like a Bond replica car, which we got a Lotus kind of shout out in this.
Well,
film,
yeah, the McMissile like design has got some
Mm.
DB5 in it. It's got a little bit of the Lotus. Yeah, it's a nice design.
Yeah, but it's interesting because this was also the first Pixar movie to get a Rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, where it fell below the 60% mark, which was shocking because you always kind of felt like even if Pixar put out something middling, it would squeak by with like a 60-something% rating. And it was one where people had their knives out for Cars 2. And I think it was a lot of adult critics really didn't connect to the first Cars. And then this one hits and it's pretty obnoxious. And they're like, okay, no. And you mentioned, no Oscar nomination. I mean, The Boss Baby got an Oscar nomination for Best Animated Film. Ferdinand, the movie about John Cena voicing a bull, got a Best Animated Film Oscar. So, like, you can kind of trip into an Oscar nomination. I think Onward probably got an Oscar nomination. So, the fact that Cars 2 didn't, it really felt like there was a bit of a kind of slap to the face of, like, don't do this, Pixar.
You're not invulnerable.
Yeah, you can do better than this. It's the way that, like, I guess with Marvel, it was Eternals, where it was like, no, don't do that anymore. And they were like, okay, we'll try. We'll try not to.
Never pay off Kit Harington. Never pay it off.
Yeah. And so it's like Cars 2 just became that one that was kind of the albatross that it was like, oh yeah, we did do Cars 2. And it was the only movie I ever walked out of by Pixar where I legitimately had a bad time. I don't mean walked out partway through the movie.
I thought that was...
No. I always stay to the end. But like I walked out having had a bad time watching it.
Yeah.
And that was a real rarity. And it's one that I honestly didn't think I would revisit in my life. And then we started the Spy Hearts podcast. And I thought, okay, well, we are going to revisit Cars 2 at some point. I never dreamed I would do it 3 times over the course of my life, I suppose.
It's also interesting to note that Spy Hearts has been here for 6 years and we've still never tackled Cars 2.
Yeah.
You've got it covered here, guys. You don't have to do it now.
Well, there's other things we'll have to go into on our show at some point, but it's not going to be this year. Probably not next year either.
But don't worry. We've got the boss baby.
That's right. 1 and 2.
I will add, Cars 2, I'm going to that, Cam. It is the only Pixar film to have scored a Rotten Tomatoes negative. The second lowest, Cars 3, got 70%. So if you think about that, 28 of 29 have scored 70% plus with critics. And I'm going to say this with an asterisk. I don't care for audience scores, particularly Rotten Tomatoes ones, because anyone can press a button at any time now and say they watched it within a minute of opening at midnight, apparently. It's also the only one with a rotten on fans audiences as well, which is interesting. Just because I thought politically wise, the usual brigade would have been screaming at something like Turning Red, but turns out they didn't.
Or one like maybe Onward, which just doesn't really connect. Yeah,
it scored higher than we thought. I will always remember that for being. Oh no, I think the cinema's going to close down this week. What will be my last ever cinema trip? Quick, Onward. Oh, Chris Pratt, Tom Holland. Damn. That's how that one went. But it is an interesting legacy. Although it's a negative one, as we've both said, right? They haven't done a spy film since, and when they did a Cars film again, they went back to the basics of what Cars is. And I would love Pixar to go down the route of an outright spy film one day, because they've teased it in, Incredibles 2 as a little bit of espionage in there, as you'd expect with the Incredibles. But I would love an outright Pixar spy film. I don't know how. I don't know if it would work, but that's something that I think could. But I wonder if they ever tried it, everyone's then going to start talking about Cars 2. Where I'm going to kind of go with that as we start to slowly round out. Normally at this point we talk about our favourite scenes of the film. People might talk about a few different ones or say this was the most impactful scene. For me, not just to continue berating this, I'm not going to be mean and say let's do a worst of, because I don't agree with that. But I will say I love the opening sequence. Maybe because it isn't meta, maybe because it's not Lightning McQueen. It's like, hey, here's espionage as a Cars film. And I like that. Again, it was the compacted cars. Like, wow, this is different for Pixar. It's quite a brutal image.
It's like Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
With the dip?
The dip, yeah.
Yeah, with the shoe.
Yeah. Like a brutal turn. I agree with you about the opening sequence. I think that it's probably the most fun I had the entire film, like seeing how spies operate in a world driven by cars, if you pardon the pun. Like it's we seem to do a lot of the things that humans would do. I'm not sure about that, but let's not get into talking about the world of cars, because I think we'd be here
it's a rabbit hole.
It's very long deconstruction about that. Yeah. Like, do they drown?
No, don't, because I had this conversation about, does this mean there was a Cars Titanic, and it went very, very quickly overboard, no pun intended.
Oh God.
Basically the information is there's a Pope mobile in this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When
they
refer
to Jesus, they refer to Jesus, I think, at one point too.
It opens so many doors that have to be explored, discussing, and then it will end up doing another 30 minutes. But
how do you crucify a car?
Well, when you think of religion, you go back to King Henry. It's like, so how do they behead his wife? Like, there are so many questions.
And they refer to dinosaurs as well in this film.
Do they?
Yeah.
But I mean, these Transformers did that part well. But see, this is it. Cars lore. I can't. It's gonna like make my head explode like something out of James Bond. But I'm glad you brought it up because every single person, the more you think about cars, the more questions it raises. But again, this film specifically, the post 9/11 airport security. And there's been a sequel to this film, well, not sequel, a spin off called Planes. There's a horror film in the making there. And then there's boats in this, and there's loads of other things going on. And it just, there's a royal family, and my brain's going to go all over the place.
See, I grew up on Thomas the Tank Engine and Tugs. I'd much rather have those as real entities than cars with eyes built into the windscreens. Like I want Thomas the Tank Engine. That just seems better.
One great thing, so that's just made me remind. There's one very, very, very funny small bit in this. There's a car that's eyes are in the lights because originally that was the concept and it didn't work at all. So I love they put it in there as like a little nod of this is what it was going to be, and it looks horrible. And that's a very great in the know comedy
it's like
moment.
That alternate Sonic the Hedgehog appearing in that other film.
Ooh.
Yeah, in Chippendale.
Chippendale Rangers. Yeah.
I will say this: when you are in Cars Land at Disneyland and Lightning McQueen or another car drives by and looks at you, it's kind of charming.
Oh, they drive them. Okay, that's on.
Yeah.
How big are they? The first time car sized or are
life
they
size? Yeah,
so they're just driving a car.
Yeah,
someone's
inside. If you like dive on the windshield,
you
going to get
you can't see a person.
No,
you see the eyes. Yeah, the eyes are there, and they've got the mouth in the front that moves, and yeah.
I'm gonna have to ask you for some advice for next year. I am going to Disney.
Start
California
saving now.
I've been saving for months. I'm scared because they've just announced. Sorry to go off topic. Galaxy's Edge is getting turned into the original trilogy from spring onwards, which I'm fine with. 50th anniversary makes sense. You can change it every 5 years. You can put prequels at some point, but that's going to be. My plan is to do one day and to get a day hopper pass to do both parks, but my priority is Galaxy's Edge because I'm doing California.
One day to do Disneyland.
My priority is Star Wars, and then if I can fit in some other things, I'll explore.
Okay.
But so that's why I'm going to get advice from a lot of different people. Like Galaxy's Edge is first priority. Then if I get time after, where do I look after?
Cam's your guy because he goes like most years, or like every couple of years to California.
You're going to get asked some very random questions. I know the ones I really want to go to all in Florida, but I've got a friend going because Tron's in Florida, Avatar's in Florida. Yeah. They're the two I would have liked to have gone to, and Toy Story Land's in Florida as well. But I've heard Radiator Springs is amazing in California.
It is
this week as well. Actually, that's 2 in a week's told me that. Sorry, I'm segueing. Final thoughts on Cars 2 for me. I'm just going to say it. The worst Pixar film. And whilst I will be positive on the concept of there is a good spy film in there somewhere that someone else could have used down the line, apologies to which one of you two corrected it earlier, that it wouldn't work for kids, it wouldn't work for this target audience. But Pixar found a way to make the spy side work. Unfortunately, it all goes wrong the moment Mater is turned into the lead. And unfortunately, that's my very polite final thoughts, if that wasn't obvious from the first hour.
Well, I mean, firstly, I wanted to chuck in a favourite scene.
Oh my god, sorry, I've jumped ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, it's your show. You jump wherever you want, but I'll just throw it in as part of my final thoughts. I just want to shout out sort of the sound design in specifically the Tokyo race, but also the one in Italy as well. They look spectacular. They get the sounds of the Formula One down quite well. I really enjoyed some of the sound work in that sequence, and just some of the visuals in the Tokyo bit were great too. It reminded me of why I like the first one a bit more because there's some racing in it, and I quite like watching that. And I'm a big speed racer defender. Weirdly, I really like that film, and so like colorful racing films, they kind of work for me.
Yeah, in terms of animation, this movie is pretty unassailable. You can't really argue against it. You can say you don't like the story or the characters, but in terms of animation, it's unbelievable. And I think like the way they convey Italy and Paris and Japan on screen and London as well, they look beautiful, and it was fun to like spot locations I've been, and it's incredible, beautiful animation that you expect out of Pixar. But my favorite scene, the opening scene, is the obvious answer. And that's what I would answer with. But I will say, I thought the Bruce Campbell torture scene was a lot of fun.
Excellent. And sorry, my bad. Final thoughts over to you both.
I think I'm beating a dead horse at this point, so I won't go into it too much. I think that it's a critical flaw of putting the wrong character front and center. And once they made that choice, everything else fell apart. And you can't ever recover from that. So it will always have that problem. It can never fix it. And the only way that it could fix it is to go back to Lightning McQueen, which they did in the third one. Is this an interesting spy movie? Kind of. Is it must-see Pixar? Probably not.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that there is some novelty factor, because if we do a spy movie podcast, so it's like, well, here's Michael Caine playing an animated spy. There's some interest there. It's unusual. We don't really think about that too much, I think, in the larger picture of film and pop culture. But that's kind of an appealing aspect of Cars 2, if it has one. But I think it's just, I mean, it's bottom of the barrel Pixar in my eyes.
Yeah, agreed with both of them. And that is how we're going to round out this, which is totally understandable. And I'm glad I've had you both on for this one. I very much appreciate your help. Anybody who is watching at home, if you look at the screen now, you'll see what is coming up on the Pixar Retrospective. We'll be back next Tuesday with a review on Brave, followed by Monsters University, followed by Inside Out. And making the board this week, we have The Good Dinosaur, which makes the next 4 weeks very interesting. And we're slowly hitting the point where I started going to cinema to watch Pixar films again, which is a very specific conversation for Inside Out, which out of context will make absolutely no sense to anybody. But I couldn't have done this without you two. Spy Hards, I haven't had you on for a while. I've not seen either of you for a while. Life has been life, as we all know. But what are you guys up to at the moment? Where can the people find you if they've somehow never heard of you? What are you up to?
Well, you may not have seen us, but we've seen you.
Yeah,
and
we've been watching.
I mean, some of those choices, George, I'd rethink it. I mean, have a chat with yourself, mate. But Spy Hards, yes, you can find us everywhere, whenever you get your podcasts. We're even on YouTube now, so our interviews have videos, so you can watch them on YouTube, and we'll link this up to this little PR feed as well. But later this month, if you want to come check us out, we're actually doing episodes on Mission Impossible Rogue Nation and Top Secret, two big spy films, beloved spy movies. We've got some interesting interviews to go alongside them as well. So yeah, come and check us out.
Excellent. Everybody, please do. Mission Impossible, you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
Ghost Protocol came out the same year as Cars 2. I guess which was the better spy film. Not hard to work out. But
well,
anybody watching at home, please do comment your thoughts on Cars 2. If we've destroyed your childhood, then please do let us know. And we might continue on Cars 3. Who knows? But that's going to be me rounding out. Thank you both so much for coming on. Thank you, everybody who's been watching at home with us. As I mentioned, that Pixar Mundo opens this week. We may upload a video on our channel. We may not. We may do some posts. Who knows? We'll let you know. But that is me rounding out. Thank you all so much. Take care. I'll see you then.